Ali, and good morning, everyone. It's lovely. I can't see you all, but I can see the number of participants. It's lovely to have you all here today. And yeah, as Ali's kind of teased, we're going to be me and Jake are going to be talking about the kind of project that we kicked off last year, digital mobilisation pilot, and kind of our sort of learnings and sort of lessons from that. So first things first, you've heard from Ali, who's our wonderful partnerships director. I'm Beth. I'm a digital strategy manager at Forward Action. And yeah, I'll let Jake introduce himself as well.
Thanks, Beth. What a way to start a Tuesday morning.
Absolutely.
So yeah, I'm Jake, head of individual giving and innovation at Stonewall, pronouns he, him. I've been with the organisation about 18 months. And this was one of the first projects that I kind of really got into at Stonewall, and it's been an absolute pleasure and I've learned a huge amount, but I'll hand back to Beth now.
Thank you, Jake. Yes, an absolutely lush start. Shout out to the world lush to a Tuesday. Great. That's us introduced. So I'm going to introduce the session today now. So this is what we're going to cover over the next sort of 35 minutes. First things first, we're going to talk about digital mobilisation, what it is. It's quite a kind of jargony phrase, I suppose. We use it a lot, talk about it a lot of Forward Action. So we'll kind of break down exactly what we're talking about when we're talking about digital mobilisation. And then I'm going to hand back over to Jake, who's going to talk more about Stonewall, about the work that they do, why digital mobilisation is really important to them, and kind of what sort of set this kind of partnership in motion. And then we'll talk a bit around kind of how we work together to kind of to kick this project off. And then we're going to move into what we learned. So sort of 5 key learnings for how to drive a kind of successful pilot. And we've distilled that down into a checklist of things that you kind of need in order to kick off your own digital mobilisation pilot. And then we'll have time at the end for any questions, reflections, anything we can kind of help with. We'd love to hear from you. And as Ali said, there's a Q&A function. So yeah, please drop questions in and we'll answer in real time, or we'll have time at the end to kind of go through anything then. Cool. So yeah, I thought it would just be useful just to have a bit of a sort of check-in, I guess, around kind of why you might be here, what might have interested you about this session and why you sort of wanted to join this morning. So the first thing might be that you're looking to raise more money online. As Ali has already teased, digital mobilisation programs are a great way to kind of bolster sort of online individual giving. So you might be here, wanting to sort of raise more money, but not totally knowing where to start to sort of do that. Secondly, you might be keen to reach new people and kind of give them a way to sort of interact with your organisation and ultimately sign up to hear more and to be able to do more for you. So that could be another reason that you're here, and sort of wanting to think about what are the compelling reasons or kind of motivators that you can kind of put out into the world and kind of hook those new supporters who might be keen to become part of your community. And then finally, those people that you go out to, those new supporters that you go out and engage, you want to ultimately kind of convert them to become an email subscriber who are motivated and mobilized to take further action for you. And we talk about high value action, so things that are really going to kind of switch the dial on your mission. And often that could be things like we've spoken about donating already, but it could also be campaigning or volunteering or other ways that supporters can get involved with your organization and work with you to make the world a better place ultimately. So before we get into the kind of nuts and bolts of today, we wanted to throw a question out to everybody here, which is how are you currently feeling about your digital fundraising program? There's a poll that should have just popped up for you where you can you can select a question, select an answer about how you might be feeling at the moment. Unfortunately, we couldn't get emojis to work on the polls, so it's on a scale of sad face to rainbow flag. How are you feeling? Whether that be you're sort of in drastic need of kind of resetting what you're doing. You feel quite good about what you're doing, but you feel like you could do with pausing and having a bit of a think about where you're at and what you could optimize, or you're absolutely smashing it. You're running an absolutely lush digital mobilisation program and there's no room for improvement. So yeah, we'd love to hear from you about what kind of where you're at with those things.
So the results are in, and we've got about A third of people are in drastic need of resetting their plan, and 2/3 of people feel like they could do with pausing and optimizing, but have got a strong start. And nobody here today feels like they're absolutely smashing it with no room for improvement, which is kind of good, because we always think that you can optimize on what you're doing. So that means that everyone's in the same mindset as us.
Yes, brilliant. Okay, good. Well, I think that sets us up. We're all in the right kind of frame of mind to receive this information and to sort of think about digital mobilization pilots and that potentially that being the kind of next step for you into moving up the emoji ladder to the rainbow flag. Brilliant. So we're going to as I say, get stuck in now. So we'll kick off first with a little sort of digital mobilization 101. So I think it's important for us to sort of reflect initially on what do we mean by digital mobilization. So in its essence, it's a communications program designed to build a large group of people who can be mobilized around a common goal that they kind of share the same values as wanting to sort of achieve that goal. And the actions of that group of people are going to be vital in achieving that goal. So in the context of Stonewall, it would be, we want to build a big community of people who share Stonewall's mission, which is to create a world where LGBTQ plus people are free to be themselves. And those people are willing and mobilized to take actions that are going to ultimately help work Stonewall to help achieve that goal, whether that's sort of campaigning around policy change or donating or other kind of key actions that are important to achieving that mission. And there are a number of principles of digital mobilization. So the first one is around scalability. So this is going to work. Digital mobilization works when you've built a big community of people. We're talking about people power, really. We're wanting to put actions in front of people that support you, support your mission, support your cause, and are going to sort of take those actions. But it all starts with having a big group of people to call on. In order to be able to call on those people, we need to be able to contact them. So what we're talking about here really is being able to secure somebody's email address or phone number and give us that route to be building those relationships with them and taking them on the kind of a journey of engagement and bringing them closer to your cause and kind of being able to say foster that relationship to sort of drive them into people that take action for you. We talk about needing meaningful actions, and I suppose what we mean by that is having things that are actually going to ultimately help you achieve your mission and putting those out in front of the supporters that want to help you achieve that mission. So for a lot of that's kind of it could be that you have a kind of a campaign coming up and you need to mobilize a lot of people around taking a specific campaign action, and that would be a really meaningful action for you because you know that you've got this moment in which you want to mobilize people around the specific thing. And then we talk around the need for focusing on impact. There's lots of things that you can do digitally, there's lots of things you can do online, but ultimately you're here to achieve your mission, and you want to make sure that everything that you're doing is going to deliver impact and is going to help sort of push you towards that mission. So thinking about what are the most impactful things that your supporters can do for you at that kind of moment in time, and sort of focusing on that and sort of having kind of being quite clear, I guess, around sort of like your hierarchy of actions and giving people the opportunity to take multiple but lots of the meaningful, impactful actions for you. So this is what we would deem to be a successful digital mobilization program. So we want to build something that comes up to this sort of block on the right hand side, which is where we've created this really big community of super engaged supporters who are ready and willing to take whatever action it is for you to help you achieve your mission. But first, there's a sort of building block, stepwise approach to getting there, which starts with a kind of testing period where we're sort of thinking about stripping back to basics, and we're thinking, how do we engage supporters online in the digital space? And you can't often know how you're going to do that, so you need to sort of enter into a testing phase where you're thinking about what can we put out in front of people that's going to engage them, and we're going to get a bunch of learnings to know whether digital mobilization is going to work in the way that we've set it up. We're proving the concepts, and we have a solid base to start on, to build on, to get us to sort of invest more money, more time, more resource into delivering this plan and building this kind of longer term program. So we start off here, which is, as I say, that kind of stripping back to basics and thinking what is going to stop people in their tracks and engage them, and kind of mobilize them to want to know more. And then once you've kind of understood what are those sort of framings that are most motivating to people, to sort of bring them into your community, that's when you're sort of saying, okay, great, I know the kind of foundational stuff that's working. How can I take that forward, the stuff that is working, and put more investment behind it, which will then help me recruit even more people. And I know that I'm doing it at the best kind of possible cost to me. And then as you sort of move through that phase, it's more about moving into that this kind of third pillar, which is sort of thinking about how do I keep building those long-term relationships? How am I continuously talking to my new supporters? How am I bringing them closer into our mission, into the organization? How am I giving them the opportunity to take further valuable, meaningful, impactful actions for me? And that's kind of how you move up into this, a successful digital mobilization program, this end pillar here. But what we're here to talk about today is this initial stage, which we typically will do within a pilot. So a pilot sort of being, I guess, a testing sort of phase. Typically we would run them from between sort of 8 to 12 weeks. And it's quite a focused, as I say, testing phase, which is the sort of outcome of it is to prove that the model, the proof of concept for the model. So are what we're doing, does it work? And do we understand some initial benchmarks? So do we know how much money it's going to cost us to recruit people using this sign-up tool? And how many of those people are going to go on to donate? And what is the rough sort of average gift that they're going to donate? And, therefore, what does that look like in terms of a kind of our ROI or return on ad spend for us? At a kind of smaller level. And once we're sort of confident in that, that's when we can say, great, these things are working. So we want to continue to do those. These things aren't working. How can we change them and sort of iterate on them and try to get them to work? But having a kind of solid sort of foundation that you can build is really why we, and is a quick way for you to get your learnings and establish your benchmarks. That's sort of why we run pilots, to give us that sort of real quick kind of foundational that foundation to then be able to build on. And just sort of touching upon what we sort of see as being a typical pilot, I guess this is sort of a bit more the kind of deliverables of a pilot, or this is a bit more what the supporter journey looks like. So we sort of spoken about wanting to go out and reach people who share your values online. So we typically do that by running social ads, often on Facebook, just because that tends to be the sort of the best place for kind of high volume, low cost supporters. And then those social ads push people, signpost people to an acquisition tool. So that is anything that is engaging and has an opportunity for a supporter to sign up and to leave their contact details so that they can be contacted by you in order to sort of bring them along the journey, give them other actions to take and kind of convert them down the line. And then what we call a daisy chain. And so what we really mean by that is that at the point in which somebody has signed up, we chain on further actions at that immediate point of sign up for them to take, because we know that the point in which somebody has aligned themselves with their values, they've wanted to leave contact details to say, put their hand up and say, I want to know more. I want other ways to get involved. You want to give them those ways to get involved immediately. So often that will look like a donate ask. It could be sharing the acquisition tool. It could be signposting to a campaign. It could be, and often we would suggest it being all of those things, prioritized in the order of what is most valuable to you. And then for the people who have left their contact details, we want to try and convert them down the line by keeping in touch with kind of frequent action-based emails, SMS or telemarketing, if that's something that you have set up, and actually continue building that relationship with supporters, bring them closer to your mission, giving them those actions to take, and fundamentally building up your digital mobilization program. So I'm now going to hand over to Jake, who is going to talk us a little bit more about who Stonewall are, the work that they do, and kind of why this sort of project came about from a sort of Stonewall perspective.
Cheers, Beth. So the background. So what I'll do is I'll talk you through who we are, why it was important for Stonewall to start this work last year, and what that looked like, how it worked, and kind of, I guess, a little bit of insight into how we worked internally and also with Forward Action. So a bit of background about Stonewall. We are, I suppose, a relatively young organisation compared to some of the charities out there. As the slide says, we were established in 1989, a year after Section 28 became law. I am old enough to remember Section 28 and to have felt the impact of that. We were founded by some amazing human beings, including Lord Michael Cashman, Pam St Clement, the actor Sir Ian McKellen, and Lisa Power, amongst other great human beings. And there was a real galvanization of the community at the point when Section 28 became law, and that galvanization is something that has continued through our movement for the last 30 odd years. And essentially, we are a campaigning and lobbying organisation, but we are a charity, recognising that we need to raise money, which kind of ties in with the mass mobilisation or digital mobilisation pilot. But we have been around for 30 odd years, and in that time, we've been part of some major change, including same-sex marriage, the civil partnerships, same-sex couple adoption, lowering the age of consent. More recently, our work with the SNP in terms of the gender recognition reform in Scotland. Last year, we had some great wins with our IVF for All campaign, but we know that there's a huge amount of work that we still need to do. So in terms of how how we kind of started looking at the framework for digital mobilization, we were really lucky to work with an organization called Rally, and Rally helped us kind of do a little bit of, I'm really sorry, I've skipped a slide, Beth, go back. I could see you giving me
Sorry,
a puzzled
Jake.
look.
No,
nothing like live telly to go wrong, right? I apologize. Why did 2022 matter? 2022 was the 50th anniversary of Pride in London, and that was a really pivotal moment for us. It was also the first time in a couple of years that we'd been able to go back out and march and be part of that movement in person after the pandemic. So it was a really important time for us to reconnect with our communities in person as well as digitally as well. This year, if you've seen in the news, 2023 is the first year that LGBTQ people have been recognised in the census. And we also know that the vast majority of the UK public are generally supportive of the community. But you've only got to look at the press and the media to know that the rights that Stonewall and so many members of the community have fought for over the years are at risk of being rolled back. And I'm not going to get into the politics of that today in this call. But as I said, I do remember what Section 28 was like to live through. I do remember what it was like to grow up as a young person, being afraid of my sexual identity. But we know that there's a community of people out there who are willing to put themselves forward and take action, whether that's our community, members of the LGBTQ plus community, or our allies. So that's why 2022 mattered. And actually this year marks the 20th anniversary of the repeal of Section 28. So there's been some big moments leading up to some big moments in the last couple of years, but we also recognise that we needed to continually engage and re-galvanise our community and allies in a contemporary, meaningful way. Now we can talk about the relationship with Rally. So we've kind of, so the digital mobilization framework is kind of step 2 of the graphic that you can see. But before that, we did a bit of work with an organization called Rally, who are amazing in this space in terms of helping your organization understand what's important to you in terms of the framework, and also help you kind of rationalize what the steps that you need to take before you can even get to this stage in the process. And I guess, you know, so different organizations of different sizes are going to be at different places, but at Stonewall, we were in a place where we already could measure our data and insights, and we had an infrastructure that enabled us to I suppose enable the processes that were needed to do this work with forward action. So, and again, this is something that you can do internally yourselves. You're going to know whether or not you've got a CRM. You're going to know whether or not you've got the right infrastructure in terms of resource to be able to pick up and also analyze, look at your insight, your evidence, and also whether or not, you know, you need to look at the culture within the organization. I think culture is really important, and it's something that will come through a little bit more on the following slides. So the aim of the pilot was quite simple, really. We wanted to build something that was essentially galvanizing the community through digital mobilization, and the mythology that Rally kind of helped us understand was that this should be something that's simple, that's easy, that it enables us to move with agility and pivot when we need to, and the ethos around this is time, voice, and money, and ultimately impact. And I mentioned the word agility, and that was kind of baked in from the get-go. It was baked in with the work that we did with Forward Action, and it was baked into our organizational culture as well. So that's super important. So in terms of that agility and kind of the culture piece, it was really important for us to get some support, some buy-in. So we had senior leadership team support and buy-in right at the start. In fact, I mentioned at the start of this presentation that I've been with Stonewall for about 18 months. So prior to me joining, SLT were already bought in. So we had the director of fundraising and the director of comms and external affairs, who were the pilot sponsors for this. They'd already done the background work with Rally anyway. So there was kind of already that cultural shift. But then in terms of the actual pilot, the first 3 months with Forward Action, it was my partner in crime, the head of digital mobilization, Irene, who was amazing, and she kind of led on this project in terms of just getting it built, the kind of the technical infrastructure, as well as ensuring that we had the right messaging and the right comms with Forward Action. And then I came along and just basically was like, right, how can I make more money out of this? And we'll go on to a bit more about that. And then once we got through the kind of the pilot, and once we'd proven the concept, it's become a bit of a business as usual rollout. So we've got the fundraising and comm teams working together. So I've got my individual giving team and the communications team working very closely on this, and they're still meeting with Forward Action weekly to analyze results and look at different ways that we can optimize. And there's obviously we work really closely with the Forward Action project team, but essentially, there is no secret sauce to this. You're going to know internally what your infrastructure is right and what the culture is like, and what you need to do to either change that or improve on it, or you might be ready to just take that next step, whether that's improving or optimizing where you're currently at, or taking that first step into the unknown. Hopefully, it won't be unknown now. So in terms of the goals, which Beth has kind of touched on already, we wanted to build this movement of our community and our allies. We wanted to ensure that we had some very clear benchmarks that would feed into a longer term digital strategy. And I think intuitively, Stonewall have known for a little while, like a couple of years, that we are probably a digital first organization. And the pandemic saw a change in the way that we were engaging with our supporters anyway, as much the same for a lot of us. So it was a perfect time really to start testing this. So yeah, as we said, we wanted to recruit new people who shared our values and our mission, and we wanted to generate those meaningful actions, whether that's through a campaign activity, donating, sharing something, or even just taking part in a poll. It was something that would enable individuals to show their support for Stonewall in a way that was meaningful to them. So is it still me? No, back to Beth.
Thank you, Jake, live in the studio. Yes, I get to talk about all of the excellent results, which is really nice. So this is a kind of snapshot of what this pilot project achieved over the sort of 12 weeks that it was running. So we sort of spoke initially about that kind of the first sort of principle of digital mobilisation being wanting to reach new people, and also as part of a pilot kind of testing what framings most motivate people to sort of want to get involved, and we'll talk a little bit around that in a few slides time. So we reached over 7,000 people on Facebook, and recruited over 31,000 new people at a great kind of cost per subscriber of 58 pence. Our benchmarks for this sort of range kind of anywhere from sort of at £1 up to sort of to £2 sometimes. So this was really great, and it was so encouraging to see so many people out in the public who were really engaged around the issues of the hand raises that we were putting out, and wanted to take a stand for the LGBTQ plus community, and that was really heartening. So that was the new subscribers we're talking about there are email subscribers, but there was also a kind of telemarketing arm to this program as well that Jake's going to talk about in more detail. I think he teased it earlier saying how can he get more money out of this program, so I'll leave Jake to talk about that in a few slides time. But we recruited over sort of 6,000 people who also wanted to leave their phone number to be contacted by Stonewall. In terms of the kind of return on ad spend that we sort of saw, we generated, so there was a really strong kind of donate rate as well. Again, super heartening to see lots of people who were leaving their email address also wanted to donate. I think we saw around 1.3% of people donating immediately after signing up, which was fantastic. And we generated a year one return on ad spend of 123%, which was brilliant. So within the first year, Stonewall were making 23% back on what they spent. And also as part of that daisy chain, and we'll show you kind of the sort of actual journey in a few slides time as well. But sort of speaking about that daisy chain and how can you put those meaningful high value actions in front of people. As part of that initial daisy chain, we also saw 7,000 people click through to Stonewall's ban conversion therapy campaign, where the action was to email your MP to ask them for a full inclusive trans-inclusive ban on conversion therapy. So that was really brilliant, and we were really pleased with the results. So yeah, as mentioned, I'll talk you through kind of that daisy chain and I guess what the supporter saw. So this was a sign up page, a hand raiser is what we call it. So a kind of sign up form that sort of looks a bit like a petition and is a way for a supporter to raise a hand and say, I align myself with that value statement on this page, and I want to sign up to know how I can support this community. So that was the sign up page, and at the point in which somebody signed up, they were then immediately asked to make a donation. So yeah, thank you for taking a stand, and are you able to chip in to support trans people? We then asked supporters to share this tool. So we know that obviously if people share this tool and then if people see it and then come back and sign up, that's obviously great. It reduces your cost per acquisition down because somebody is doubling their impact. You're getting two supporters in for the price of one. But we also know that again, it's all around people power. People trust people, and having people sharing it with their networks is a great way to also to bolster your kind of digital mobilisation program, and is a real kind of like pillar of doing digital mobilisation well. As mentioned, we also asked people to contact their MP around harmful conversion therapy practices, and instating a full ban. And then finally, we asked people to connect with Stonewall on social media. Stonewall, as Jake has already said, are very kind of active in the digital space, which is brilliant, and have, are active across multiple platforms, multiple social media sites. So getting supporters to follow Stonewall on social media, obviously then they're being reached by organic content, but also it kind of opens up the door for sort of retargeting. So you can, on Facebook, for example, you can retarget people who have followed you on Instagram and Facebook with follow-up actions, whether it's sort of direct donate ads, etc., that kind of thing. So yeah, another kind of important step in the journey. So that's sort of what we did, and our kind of top line results. So now we're going to talk about the 5 kind of key lessons that we learned that sort of enable a pilot to sort of be successful. So I'm going to pass back to Jake for this, I think.
Thank you very much. So as Beth said, we tested some different framings. So you can see there, we had 3 kind of top level ad sets running. So trans rights, conversion therapy, and hate crime. And trans rights was our banker. For those of you that are familiar with kind of traditional direct marketing approaches, that you always have a banker pack to rely on. And so trans rights is our banker messaging. We knew, and we were able to kind of on a almost daily basis check the results of the ad sets that were running and which core messaging was working well. And trans rights, in terms of just engaging with the community and allies, hit the mark. Which kind of, without becoming a political presentation, this kind of harks into, goes back to the point around the UK public being really supportive of LGBTQ plus identities. So that was really warming for a couple of reasons. One, it shows that we can galvanise the community around a strategic pillar that's really important to us, and 2, we know that we've got some, we're on the right path, we're doing the right thing. So the cost per lead was 18 pence, but even going up to 39p, the cost per lead was still really cheap when we started testing that, doing that testing framework as well. So this kind of the digital mobilization piece is a really cost effective way of being able to test different framings and content with your organization really quickly, with supercharged results. So yeah, really exciting. I think I'm handing back to Beth now.
You are. I'm here to talk about Facebook. So our second lesson was to work with Facebook and not against it. I suppose what we mean by that is that we kept things very simple on Facebook, and our best kind of performing audience was a broad audience. So that is any genders over the age of 18 years old in the UK. We went out to, and that's something that we really recommend doing, particularly with pilots. And generally digital mobilization programs on the whole, is to go out to a broad audience, because that is where you're going to find the most, that is where you're able to put your ask out in front of pretty much everybody, and see who is going to take the action. So you're giving yourself the biggest opportunity, or giving the public the biggest opportunity to engage in your work and to sign up. So we did test a few other audiences, but broad is our kind of bread and butter audience that we would always recommend testing, to keep it keep kind of volumes as big as possible, and that is where we saw the majority of our leads come through anyway. We also tested a few different placements. So we tested Facebook newsfeed placements, which we typically see as being the best performing placement for ads for a kind of digital mobilization program like this. tends to be the most cost effective. But we did also test Instagram as well, but we found that the cost per acquisition on Instagram was around 5 times that of Facebook. So we sort of stuck to Facebook, and that's sort of where we would typically suggest starting out. And then if you do want to get learnings on other platforms, Instagram, Twitter, for example, you can kind of test from there. But we sort of know that sort of Facebook newsfeed placements are your kind of go-to, and typically very successful. We maybe this is slightly controversial, but we are a firm believer in letting the Facebook algorithm do its thing. It's sort of best place to find your people. It knows who's going to engage with your ads, and then it's going to push them out to the people that are engaging. And yeah, that's sort of typically what we would suggest, and that's why we keep things broad and we keep things simple. And we think it's really important with Facebook. We've sort of spoken around this already, but Facebook gives you, and doing things, sort of social post to a fundraiser. The social side of it, so the ads that you're running, are a great way for you to do loads of testing just up front. So you can get as many ads as you want out that trial slightly different imagery or different framings, and you can do them really quickly, which gives you a great opportunity to respond to real world events. So this ad on the right hand side is an example of that, where we're able to talk about what is actually going on in the news and politically around conversion therapy and around trans rights, and we were able to talk about that in a really meaningful way, in a way that created urgency, and explain to the supporter why it's really important to get involved now. I'm back to you, Jake, I think, to talk through the touch points.
I didn't realize I was back so quickly, but thank you so much. So as this slide says, it does make every touch point count. So as well as ensuring that you're capturing people's details, and we'll talk about kind of the phone number bit that we added on a bit later on. I think we've got a couple of slides to go for that. It was really important that we then were asking people to donate. And we saw that, I think one of the earlier slides said that we had a 123% return on ad spend in year one, which is predicted in year one, which is really, really, really strong for us. But also that kind of sharing and asking people to take a campaign action as well. We saw really high engagement as well. So that was really important. And then I suppose the next point really, which I'm going to go into a bit more detail, is around the phone numbers piece. So initially, if I skipped a slide again, I'm really sorry about this.
It's all good.
So the other points as well, sorry, apologies. We had some polls in there again. So these are just really low cost engagement tools that you can give your supporters just to help them feel super close to your organization really quickly. And again, this is all part of the daisy chain. Some of these are part of the daisy chain, and some of this are follow-up actions with emails as well, and some of the welcome journey. So people would go in and they would take the sign-up action. They would be served the daisy chain, which would be a donate ask or a social share, or sign a petition, and then they would be asked to go on the welcome journey as well. So not asked, they would put on the welcome journey, which would be a series of about 5 emails, which would be split off depending on which actions people took, whether they opened them or they didn't. And then we would chuck in a little bit of social proofing on the donate asks as well, so we could see what the average gift sizes were, so we could then nudge people. And you can see on that kind of example on screen where we have a very kind of unique or specific ask of £21.82, but that was based on a social proof that we knew that our average gift size was £21.82. And actually what we saw was that then more people were going up to basically because they were being told that people like them were donating that amount. It was just improving the overall average gift size as well. So some really strong results there. And now I'll get into talk about the exciting, what I found really exciting about this whole pilot. So we were in, I think we were about week 6, if I'm right, Beth, where I had how can I make more money out of this? And that sounds really mercenary, and I don't want to sound mercenary, but I am a fundraiser. That's the heart of everything I do. And I work for a charity that I'm really passionate about, so I want to make as much money as possible. So we've been running telemarketing campaigns for about 7 years, I think, at Stonewall, and that's traditionally through the value exchange model. So again, ads on Facebook, sign up here for a free pin badge. People sign up, they leave their phone number, and then they get a call from our telemarketing agency. So that for those of you that know, kind of value exchange telemarketing can have high attrition rates. Conversion can be low to gift, so it can be quite expensive to run, and it's also, and you know kind of need to be on it in terms of managing the journey on that, and reducing the attrition rate. So we thought we'd see, what it would be like to put a phone number in on the ads at the kind of the personal data capture moment. So we tested that out, and it was optional. And I think Forward Action did some little wizardry in there, so it auto-populated as well. So that kind of sped up the journey a little bit. So you can see here that 31% of people left their phone number, which was really good, really strong. And we had 15% conversion. So our value exchange program was running around 20% conversion. But what's really, really important is the attrition rate in months 1 and 2 on people being converted from the hand raiser pilot was much, much lower than our traditional Valex. So we were looking at about 10% attrition in months 1 and 2, which is really good. The average gift size was higher, which meant that we had an improved year 1 ROI and an improved year 5 ROI, all compared to our traditional value exchange program. So that has meant that we have pivoted away from the kind of traditional telemarketing value exchange model that we've been running for years and years and years, because we knew that, well, we kind of instinctively we knew that these people were going to be more engaged because they're not signing up for something for free. They're signing up because they believe in a value statement that resonates with them as individuals, whether they're a member of the community or an ally. Anybody can sign up to an ad to receive a pin badge, even if you target the ads to those people who you know are going to be warmest to your cause. They're signing up for a free thing, not because they are personally aligned to your organization. So that's what was really important about this small test, and we rolled that out and continued it for the remainder of certainly this financial year, January to March, and we'll talk about what the future holds on, I think, the next couple of slides. So planning beyond the initial sign up, or planning for success beyond initial sign up. So I think it's really important that you make the most of this very warm, this super warm audience. And you can do that in a number of ways, but it's about keeping the conversation going. And I've mentioned that Stonewall is definitely a digital first organization, but it's really easy to keep that conversation going through quick and easy engagement. So after the 2-week email journey, we put people, two-week welcome journey, we put people into our standard newsletter. And we also did a lovely little test at the end of last year. So Stonewall is essentially, we don't do kind of winter or Christmas campaigns. Christmas for us is the summer around Pride season. That's queer Christmas for us. But we know that there's a traditional, model of giving in the UK around Christmas, so we wanted to test that. So we put out a winter fundraising email appeal. And we worked with Forward Action on that, and it was a really low investment. And we put in the emails an ambitious target, but I guess for a lot of you it would be modest, but it was £10,000. And in year 1, we're projecting that we're going to smash that with around 18k in year 1 of projected income, which is really good. And so part of the success for that was the fact that we had increased our email list, our warm list by about 35,000 donors, and growing. Not saying donors, supporters, some of those who were donors. So that's really exciting. but also in terms of beyond the kind of the winter appeal, we are sending out more campaign actions. We're sending out monthly fundraising emails, which are having more success now, and we're able to test cross-sell with that audience. We're sending out invites to other opportunities, other fundraising actions, and we're getting more engagement with our surveys and engagement tools, and just wider engagement tools as well. So it's been really exciting in terms of just being able to build a super warm audience. So I'm going to hand back to Beth now.
Thanks, Jake. Yeah, our final lesson in terms of kind of what we learn and what makes a successful pilot is around thinking MVP first, and that is not most valuable player, that is minimum viable product. So thinking about what is the kind of quickest way you can get something out that works, and is going to help you establish your benchmarks, your initial kind of understanding of whether this approach works. So our kind of tools for doing that is keeping tech simple. So what you really need, kind of the crux of it, is that you need a way to get people to a sign-up form. We typically use Facebook ads. You need a quick and easy sign-up form, and you need to be able to contact those people via email. So here we use Blueprint, which is a forward action tool, kind of optimized sign up page tool where you can kind of personalize everything, and it integrates into lots of other kind of email providers, but MailChimp, which is what Stonewall use. So we had that as the kind of acquisition side of things, and then we use Typeform just to kind of make quick and easy polls and surveys that we had, as Jake said, in in kind of like the welcome series of emails, and we use that as sort of tactics to engage people and prime them for donations, etc. there. In terms of if you don't have, if you're wanting to just get something off the ground and you don't have a kind of snazzy sign up page sort of platform or anything like that, there are lead gen forms that you could use in Meta, which could be a good alternative to a design sign up page. There are cons to doing that, in the sense that you kind of can't optimize that much of it, you can't customize or personalize a lot of it, but it will help you test framings initially and help you establish some initial kind of benchmarks for what could a cost per acquisition look like for me. As I say, this is all kind of underlined by this point of focusing on getting something live, not perfect. And getting something live quickly means that you're able to, as I say, establish those benchmarks. What are my costs? What are my metrics? And then how can I quickly improve on them by iterating on things that are working, or understand more about the things that aren't working. And this is kind of really sort of sums up and harks back to sort of Jake talking about agility and having that kind of mindset, both in the work that we were doing, but also sort of Stonewall kind of adopting that and being very digital first and having that sort of agile mindset that's kind of, as I say, underpinned this project and helped it to be successful.
Beth, just in the spirit of time, so we've got about minutes left, shall we whistle through to the checklist, and then we've got a few questions about social strategy and things I think people would be really find valuable.
Yes, perfect.
Let's
do that. Great. So yeah, as Ali has teased, this is what we're suggesting as being your kind of checklist for a pilot. So we've spoken around why pilots are great. You can get through something quickly, set your benchmarks, and you can really establish this foundation, both in terms of an actual like tangible program, but also establish a foundation internally, like Jake has spoken about, kind of a business as usual team of the comms team and the fundraising team working together. It gives you the opportunity to sort of lay that internally as well. And we've spoken a little bit around what is next for Stonewall. Jake, I'll tease this, which is that we're still working together, which is brilliant. I'm really, really pleased that we're still sort of working in partnership, and we've been rerunning the pilot. What we learned from the pilot, the kind of hand raisers are performing well, the trans rights hand raisers, and we've already recruited over the last sort of 6 weeks another 9,000 to 10,000 people and converted a bunch of them to make donations too, and kind of looking at how we can kind of deliver that longer term in 2023. And then, yes, I think, as Ali mentioned, this is the checklist. These are the things that we think that you need in order to do a pilot yourself. So the first thing is having an empowered and enthusiastic team who can make quick decisions. So people that you put forward that have that are able to take things forward themselves, and are able to kind of work in an agile way to get things set up. We've recommended having 3 values-based framings to test. So that sort of goes back to the kind of hand raiser model, and we had the 3 framings that we tested: trans rights, ban conversion therapy, and LGBTQ plus hate crime. And we wanted to test those against each other to see what best motivated people to want to engage. You need a sign-up mechanism, whether that's a fully optimized sign-up page, or if you want to do some quick testing, you can use lead gen forms on social. You need a donate page, because that's typically what we're sort of talking about here, is framing digital mobilization in the context of digital fundraising and giving people who are engaging with you the opportunity to make a donation to your organization. You need a meta ad account, so you need a way in which you can push people to the sign up mechanism, and we've recommended doing that by Facebook ads, Facebook news ads, typically, as being the kind of cheapest way to get people there. And you need the ability to send people follow-up actions immediately. So if you are using lead gen forms and you can't push people down a daisy chain, you want to be emailing, they want to be having email from you landing in their inbox within a day of them signing up, giving them more things to do for you, so that you can keep fostering that like beautiful relationship with these new supporters, and move yourself up from kind of pilot phase up into that kind of 4th pillar, sort of longer term digital mobilization program. And I think that is everything from us, and we're ready for questions.
Thank you so much. That was brilliant. I hope everyone enjoyed that and got a lot from it. I think there's been so generous in sharing all the information. So thank you, Jake and the team at Stonewall. We have questions. We have 5 minutes. A lot of the questions are around paid social strategy. So Beth, if you're up for this, I'm going to kind of group them together and you can talk a little bit about how we approach the paid social strategy. So the questions are kind of, how did we handle targeting for Facebook? If you're using broader targeting, did we use any criteria other than just people of all genders over the age of 18? And then the next part of that is a bit more for Jake, which is what happens if the algorithm attracts negative feedback and only attracts that negative feedback, and how do we moderate it? So kind of the strategy and then the practical implications of that.
Yes, I can crack on, and I'll pass over to Jake. So yeah, I think the first question was around, did we do any other targeting? We did do a little bit of targeting around people who were engaged on Facebook a little bit further down the line, just because we sort of knew, we wanted to capture people who had like an affinity to Stonewall's kind of issues, but maybe weren't on their email list yet, because obviously they're warmer. But we typically go for broad targeting, and let the algorithm do its thing, because that is just the way that we can get our content out and in front of as many people as possible. We get our learnings about what works well quicker because a higher volume of people are engaging with it, so we can spot the trends between different framings. But generally, just because going out to as broad amount of people is giving like the most people the opportunity to get involved, and because this whole model is sort of centered around the scalability of it, we want to be able to give as many people as possible the opportunity to get involved. And we typically see broad audiences, it's not specific to this partnership and this project. We typically at Forward Action see broader audiences being the best performers. How we kind of optimize, I guess, is important maybe, and that sort of touches a little bit maybe upon the question that Jake is going to answer around sort of the moderation side of things. But we optimize our Facebook ads campaigns to leads. And what we mean by a lead is somebody who has said, yes, I've opted in to hear more. And because that we've done lots of testing around that Forward Action, and that often creates a cheaper cost per acquisition, but also it's getting the people that are actually doing the thing that you want them to do, which is leaving their contact details. And we then exclude the email list, and we regularly exclude the email list. So it means that you're not then spending money going out to people that are already sitting on your email list and you're contacting. So that's important. And often we find that optimizing to people who are leads, or optimizing to leads, is a way that people don't want to leave their contact details if they're not actually interested in hearing from you and actually care and like positively care, like they're warm to your issues. You probably less likely to get those, I guess what you're sort of talking about are kind of like the hateful negative comments. People aren't probably going to leave their email address, they're going to drop stuff in comments on ads themselves. So that sort of is a way, I guess, a little bit of mitigating against that too. But I'll pass back over to Jake to talk a little bit more around the kind of moderation side of things.
Thanks, Beth. I'm glad that you talked about the technical bit of that, because I would not be able to answer it. In terms of the moderation, it is, I hate to say this phrase, but it's a bit Billy Basics. We've been running Valx campaigns on Facebook for years, as I mentioned. So it was the same approach really. It's just keeping an eye on the ads themselves, the comments, and as Beth said, because we were optimizing for leads anyway, you're more likely to not, once people come into your ecosystem, they're not generally the trolls. They are people who have signed up to give you because they want to hear more from you. That's not to say that you're not going to get the occasional one or two, but I can honestly say, hand on heart, that we haven't had an increase in kind of direct trollism, if that's a term. Yeah, there's always going to be people, keyboard warriors, kind of sat at home, sat behind their screens, leaving nasty, hateful comments, and that's something that Stonewall is geared up to deal with anyway. So we are moderating and checking feedback on ads and comments and stuff like that. But overall, I think as long as you've got an infrastructure that's able to deal with that, if you have a social media strategy already and you're dealing with that kind of stuff on a daily basis, and it depends on the nature of your organization, then you're not going to see any massive change, because Forward Action will support you on your journey to ensure that you're optimizing to get the right people.
Brilliant. Thank you so much. I think I put in the chat, but that optimizing for leads, when we've not done that on partners, we've seen such a huge difference in the type of engagement. So that's the number one thing that people should take away. I know that